living in the Twilight Zone, and I could hear the theme song going on. He opened the door, and he was covered in blood.
He was here one moment, gone the next. There's no goodbye, there's no I'll talk to you later, there's no nothing. He was gone.
They're getting these weird messages.
Roses are red, violets are blue, my wife is a whore, your husband is too.
My family and I are begging you, asking for your assistance.
Nothing added up. Nothing made sense.
Had she ever mentioned anything about Mike, concerns about Mike?
She's sobbing. She's just, I know he's coming around. There's stuff, doors that were closed or open. And
Lori told her that Mike got picked up in a black SUV one day, never came back. And I started putting those pieces together.
It made it alarming. It gave me chills. Everything that had been happening for the last 2.5 years was likely a lie.
There was just more and more twists and turns.
Asked, well, when's the last time you seen him? And frankly, I said, years.
What? This is Claremont, Florida, a rural community about 20 miles west of Orlando, but a world apart from the tourist-filled amusement parks. Michael and Lori Shaver were raising their 2 children here when his lifelong friend, Scott Tuccio, started to get worried.
We were best friends. We were just always around each other. I could tell something was off. I just haven't heard from Mike for a while. I had texted him at some point in time. He never responded. And then I'm like, what's going on with Mike's Facebook? I go to his page, and he wasn't even my friend anymore.
For friends so close, an unexplained social media slight like this was strange to ignore. And it turns out Scott wasn't the only one worried.
I would get strange messages. We were just questioning it. Like, is he having that many troubles that he has to turn away from his family?
The communication went down, and it seemed to be it was just a text or a social media Facebook message.
We had conversations all the time about where's Mike?
Have you seen Mike? Have you heard from Mike?
Someone said Michael just took off in a black SUV and never came back. None of this adds up.
Clearly, something wasn't right.
Michael was missing.
He was here one moment, gone the next, just gone.
Everybody's hair was raised, and what's going on?
It was that concern that started the unraveling of a years-long mystery as deep and dark as the lakes that surround this place.
Hi, I'm Michael Shaver. Oh, there I am. That's me. See?
Michael grew up the third child of 4 with his brother and 2 sisters in the tiny rural village of Lawrence in upstate New York.
Our relationship was a very special bond. My mom was a single mother, so I would help my mom out whenever she needed help with Michael. I would always put Michael first.
This is a photo of Mike and I. We're at my house that I grew up in. We would just have fun as kids, ride our bikes all day long, and go on adventures, always playing around the neighborhood. She was great at playing drums. Eventually learned to play guitar. We used to have this band. We called the Rifles and Dandelions instead of Guns N' Roses. That was our silly way of coming up with a band.
As a young man, Michael showed a talent for working with his hands.
I've played with tools all my life. I believe that the genes were passed on to Michael because as a kid he used to repair stuff around the house.
He would go around the town, and people would actually give him stuff. He would fix it.
You may take an old bicycle or something and fix it up and make it work again for somebody. It's like a sense of accomplishment, saying, I fixed that.
One time, him and his friend built an airplane out of wood in the backyard. And I swear if they'd had a motor, they would have taken off with it. It was really something. You should have seen it.
Michael's love of tinkering with things, I believe, led him to wanting to work on airplanes. And then as he got a little older, he wanted to learn how to fly.
Flying wasn't the only thing Michael loved. By the time he'd gotten to high school, his head was also in the clouds for Lori Paddleford, seen here in their yearbook.
We all grew up together. It was around 7th or 8th grade. Mike had a crush on Lori. He wanted to figure out the best way to ask her out. We had come up with this great idea of playing Boys to Men in the background. So that's how they ended up dating.
I don't think I really understood how serious it was until after they graduated. Then they were talking about marriage.
This is a picture of Mike and I at his wedding. I was his best man, and this was us together.
Their wedding was beautiful. Lori, she was so happy. I remember Michael couldn't stop smiling. He eventually got his commercial pilot license, worked for Piedmont.
He loved it, and he used to take his friends up and do loop-the-loops with them, and they loved it.
Soon, Michael and Lori became parents to daughter Isabel and her younger brother Aiden. After moving up and down the East Coast, Michael and his family ended up in the Sunshine State.
When I moved down to Florida, it's when they moved down to Florida.
They moved to Claremont, bought a property, 5 acres. It's pretty rural. It's beautiful lakes, some rolling hills. It's pretty quiet.
He had chickens and guineas and turkeys and quite a few ducks, and he wanted them to have their own duck pond.
In his off hours, he worked as a mechanic for Precious Metal, a local flight team that performs in races all over the country.
We were both volunteers for the Precious Metal air racing team. Reno air racing has been compared to NASCAR of the sky. It's multiple planes on a closed course at one time. Speeds are up to 500 miles per hour. You're 50 feet off the ground. It's a huge adrenaline rush. We spent several years, several long nights, sometimes 3 days in a row working on the plane together. The people who described him as a genius, I would agree. He just took care of it. He knew that the job was going to be complete as it should.
Lori worked from home for an insurance company while Michael was away for days at a time working as a pilot. Wanting to be with his family more, Michael quit the airline business for another dream job. This one at the most magical place on Earth.
When Mike and I worked at Epcot together, he was a mechanic.
Working at Disney was just his little kid inside, and he loved that job. You know, he was flourishing.
But then, for some reason, dependable Michael just stopped showing up.
He was here one moment, gone the next. No goodbye, no nothing.
It seemed Michael Shaver was blowing off his friends, his family, even his job.
When the manager contacted Mike, Mike's response was, "You can go ahead and fire me, I'm not coming back."
But if Michael Shaver wasn't coming back, where exactly was he going?
For Lori and Mike Shaver. Mike was about the same age as my oldest son, so he was kind of like another son to me. My home was probably 50 feet away from their home, no trees in the middle. I would be just outside doing my chores and I could hear their arguments happening inside. I talked to Lori. I just said, "You guys okay? You know, I hear you fighting sometimes."
Lori acted like everything was fine. She was all smiles, and he was all smiles, and they covered it up pretty good.
I had no idea the extent of what was going on. I guess that's typical. Nobody knows what's really going on inside the house.
On a hot, late summer afternoon, the simmering tension inside the house erupts.
911, can you please fire an ambulance service? Please. I'm on my way to the sheriff's office right now. I got my kids in the... What's going on? It was a domestic violence dispute. My goodness, lady.
I had just gotten home from work and my phone rang. It was Mike. And he said, "Can you come over? I need your help." He opened the door and he was covered in blood. Blood streaming down his face. There was torn clothes. I took a whole lot of photos just in case he needed it at any point in the future.
There was a domestic abuse incident in September of 2014 at Michael and Lori's house.
We're dealing with a scenario where we have the allegations made by Lori Shaver.
Lori is the 911 operator. She and Michael have been fighting a lot lately, but it never got physical until that night.
I grabbed my gun because he has guns. I hit him in the head with it. I grabbed my kids and left. He pulled out a gun on you? Oh, yeah. He grabbed my car keys and stuck them in his pocket. I fought him to get my keys out of his pocket, and then I grabbed my kids.
Mike's version of events was she was the one that grabbed the gun. She was the one that was initiating the violence. He was trying to calm the situation down.
He said that they had been in a fight. and Lori had threatened to kill him and herself, and that they had wrestled with a gun.
Has there been any drinking tonight? Yes, there has. We've probably had 3 beers since 2 o'clock. You both had 3 beers? Yeah.
Michael admits he kept the car keys from Lori to prevent her from leaving, but he says that's because he didn't want his wife driving with the kids after she'd been drinking. Both say during the struggle, Lori hit Michael on the head with her revolver.
The revolver that was on the bed looked like a .38, and it had pink plastic grips. Then I noticed there were roses all over the floor.
She didn't go up to Michael Shaver and just wail on Michael Shaver. He had a handgun he pulled on her, and I believe she tried to deflect the gun and it hit him.
Police are unable to determine who started the physical altercation with the pistol.
Ultimately, Michael was arrested for not anything dealing with the firearms, but he admitted, I grabbed her, and law enforcement arrested him for battery.
The battery charge is ultimately dropped, but things are never the same between the childhood sweethearts. But Michael and Lori dug in and pointed fingers at each other.
Lori had been the victim of years of physical abuse by Michael Shaver. These acts were extreme. Lori was locked in a closet. Lori would be physically beaten.
I never heard Mike, scream at Lori or do anything physically. Lori trying to paint Mike into this monster and the abusive person in the relationship. Everybody that knew Mike knew that wasn't the case.
I do think Lori was abusive towards my brother and controlling. She would only let him talk for 20 minutes on the phone to me.
His friends would say that he'd come around and have bruises. They'd ask him what was the matter, what happened, and Lori got mad.
Michael Shaver was not some innocent victim that married some violent woman. Michael Shaver was an aggressive guy, and she was always the victim of this aggression.
In the fall of 2014, a judge grants a no-contact order against Michael, and he's forced to move out of the house he shared with Lori and his kids.
Mike was staying in the airplane hangar where the precious metals plane was. I just figured it was for a day or two, and then later on I learned that he'd been down there, for a week or even more.
He was living basically at the hangar. There was like a meeting room with some nice big comfortable couches. There was a shower there and a bathroom.
She would kick him out, he would leave, a month or two would go by, and then she would have him come back again.
Michael's friends say that while he was living out of the house, he still keeps tabs on Lori, suspecting she's seeing other men.
When they would split up and Mike would be gone, there would be men that would come over quite often to the house.
Michael believed that Lori cheated on him quite frequently. Lori always denied that she was cheating on Michael. He would say, "What do you think? Does it sound like she's cheating, or am I just losing my mind?"
There was a time where I think Mike just needed to know what was going on at home. He and a friend would fly over Mike's house just to see whose truck was in the driveway, maybe just to make sure nobody was there.
He was willing to overlook that and get past it, but it showed the love that he had of willing to fix stuff to be with his family.
He loved her so much, I guess he forgave her.
Michael's repeated attempts to save his marriage began to strain his other relationships.
I tried to go visit Michael and his children in Florida, and always at last minute, I would get a message saying that Lori said it was a bad time, that we shouldn't come down.
But soon the communication from Michael went from infrequent to almost non-existent. He seemed to simply vanish.
He was there at the tractor show, and then the next week he was gone, and there was nothing in between. It was just gone.
And when Frank checks in with Lori, her answer only deepens the mystery.
According to Lori, Michael flew out of town, didn't want to be part of the family anymore.
Gone without a trace. Or what? Michael and Lori had a roller coaster relationship, but in the fall of 2015, things seemed to be going well. So well that Michael has moved back in with Lori and the kids.
I know that he went home and that they were trying to work things out. He had quite a few ducks, and they were staying with the chickens in the chicken coop, and he wanted them to have their own duck pond.
He was digging out a duck pond in the back for her ducks because she wanted to raise ducks and chickens. So he was home, they were back together again.
But then things take another turn. November
7th, 2015, it's a day Frank Merritt says he will never forget. He and his family met Michael and Lori Shaver and their children at a local tractor show.
Oh, it was really hot that day. They do a show 3 or 4 times a year during the winter months. It's just a bunch of antique tractors, and it's like a flea market. Mike was really into that stuff. He really liked that old stuff.
But Michael's friend and co-worker Frank says he could once again sense an unspoken tension between Michael and Lori.
She just wouldn't make eye contact with us. She wouldn't speak with us, and it was just kind of weird because she was usually more bubbly than that. And then he says, "Hey, I gotta go," so they left.
The next time Frank hears from Michael is by text, 2 days later.
He had texted me on Monday that he was going to have to quit his job to save his marriage, so I just kind of backed out of it. I just left him alone. So when he didn't show up Tuesday, I didn't think nothing of it. It's just, well, he's got some problems. They'll work it out. And then Wednesday he didn't come, and Thursday he didn't come. And it wasn't until Thursday night that our manager came to see us.
After 3 days of no showing at work, Michael's manager reaches out to him and gets a surprising response back.
Mike's response was, "You can go ahead and fire me, I'm not coming back."
So just none of it made sense at all that Michael had sent a text message to his boss just up and quitting. He was known to be a very dependable worker and a diligent worker. That didn't add up at all.
Like, well, if he's not showing up and not calling, I'll go by and check on him.
But when Frank goes to Michael's house looking for answers, he only ends up with more questions.
Lori answers the door, asks where Mike is at, and she said he's not home. And I said, "Well, what do you mean he ain't here?" And I said, "Well, his car is here." And his car was in the driveway, so she said, "He's not here."
Frank says Lori eventually told him after a heated argument, Michael stormed off, catching a ride with his friend Robert to Georgia, and she hadn't seen him since.
Mike never told me he wanted to go to Georgia. He had never spoken about wanting to leave the state, leave the marriage, any of that. I thought he was happy here, and we were doing so well, and then it's like, what an idiot. I felt like that was the wrong thing to do, it's just walk away.
I reached out to Lori through Messenger on Facebook, and I said, "Do you know where Michael is?" And she said, "No, he left the kids, he's not paying child support."
This strikes Michael's sister Stacy as completely out of character for the brother she knows.
His kids meant more than anything in the world to him, and he would not just up and leave his children.
And when I was texting with him, he says, "I'm never coming back," and just wasn't answering his phone, never coming back.
I knew they were having some marital problems, so I felt like he needed some space.
He doesn't want to be involved with this craziness.
Could Michael have finally had enough of his rocky marriage and decided to ditch it all, his job included, and head north to start over?
It was his dream job. He would never quit. Nothing added up. Nothing made sense.
What was strange and unusual about the messages that Mike was sending to his friends and family?
The common theme of all of them have been, "Leave me alone. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Just leave me alone. I don't have family."
He didn't want to be found. He wanted to be left alone. He was not coming back. He had abandoned his family, and he was gone.
These text messages were completely out of character for Michael. I think that the family really noticed that very quickly.
Michael's niece, Desiree Ruggles, got this text from him, flat out saying, "I don't have a family."
Is there a reason why he's pulling away from our family? Because he doesn't talk to us anymore? Does he just need time? And I got a little angry, and I'm just like, you know what? If you don't want to be a brother, don't be a brother.
Just when it seems he's gone for good and his wife Lori is moving on,
Lori met Jeremy at a park and their children began to play together.
Michael Shaver seems to show back up. Had she ever mentioned any concerns about Mike?
Yes. She goes, "I know he's coming around. I know he's harassing me. There's doors that were closed or open, and you need a restraining order."
Seems to be abandoning his life. He hasn't shown up to work, and when friends and family reach out to him, they get messages saying, "Just leave me alone."
According to Lori, Michael blew out of town, didn't want to be part of the family anymore, left the state.
Over time, with no sign of Michael, Lori moves on with her life, meeting a new man, Jeremy Townsend, or Jay, as he's often called.
He's in the military or was in the military. They ended up exchanging numbers. a relationship developed.
Lori's fresh start also includes getting fit. She starts working with a personal trainer named Rebecca Filmer.
Hey, girl. Way to work.
How did you meet Lori?
So I originally met her at Gold's Gym. I met her through her then boyfriend, Jay Townsend. He introduced us as his girlfriend at the time. She had just lost a lot of weight and she wanted to start working out. Lori was super sweet. She was just someone that was very easy to talk to. She liked going out to dance and stuff. So we just kind of connected.
And you end up becoming roommates. You moved in this neighborhood with her.
Yes, we became friends pretty close.
So close that Lori confides in her about relationships with men, including what Lori says was a difficult marriage to Michael Shaver.
She told me she was in this relationship that he made her feel bad about herself. And I started to understand why she wanted to lose so much weight, why she was so focused on her appearance. I mean, in session, she'd be in the mirror, like, fixing her hair and making sure everything was just so.
And even though it seemed Michael had initially skipped town, Rebecca says Lori told her that she started to sense that he was back.
There was a time we're sitting in the living room and she's sobbing. She's just, I know he's coming around. There's stuff, doors that were closed or open. And I'm like, you need to get a restraining order, if it's getting that bad. She says, no, I don't want to be bothered. It's just going to kind of open up a whole nother can of worms.
Rebecca says Lori told her that she was divorcing Michael once and for all and moving on with her life.
And she goes, oh, I had the court appearance to settle their divorce. And I'm like, oh, okay, how did that go? She said it was settled. She's officially divorced. And I was like, perfect.
But Lori's new relationship is far from perfect. She knows that man she's been seeing, Jeremy Townsend, is already married.
Jeremy's wife didn't know about Lori.
And Jeremy doesn't seem to be leaving his wife anytime soon, something that texts between the two show was creating a strain on their relationship. In April 2016, Jeremy's wife, Vanessa, gets a surprise. She's at work one day when she receives a flower delivery, but it's not from Jeremy. The delivery comes with a strange card.
Roses are red, violets are blue, my wife is a whore, your husband is too, sorry about this, check your Facebook message, we need to talk, Mike.
Then Jeremy's wife goes onto Facebook and finds a message from Michael Shaver informing her of the affair. He says he's installed a spy app on Lori's cell phone, and he includes screenshots of texts and explicit photos between Jeremy and Lori.
Basically, Mike was outing this affair.
Lori's relationship with Jeremy implodes after his wife finds out.
It was clear that he wasn't going to be leaving his wife. They were going to work it out, and him and Lori were over.
Lori moves on from Jeremy pretty quickly to another guy, Travis.
Travis Filmer was a youth leader at a local church. Lori met him through Rebecca.
I didn't know anything about her, but from appearances, she was really put together. I knew that she had kids. I saw how she interacted with the kids, so for me, that was a very important thing. I've always wanted kids. I've always wanted a family. I know when I was a kid and my parents got divorced, it destroyed me.
The sparks between Travis and Lori first flying during a bonfire get-together at Lori's house.
Her smile is the one thing that just stood out to me. It drew me to her.
After that night, it was Travis this, Travis that. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. I think she had a type. When I've seen pictures of Mike and, the way that he would dress, it was similar to Travis.
We ended up going out to dinner. We just hit it off. We had a lot in common and decided to keep seeing each other.
Lori also told Travis details about her relationship with Michael.
From the things that she described to me, it was a very bad situation. She had told me that they were divorced. And I did ask if she was receiving any child support. And she told me that she wasn't, that he didn't want anything to do with the kids.
I'm Kendall Windsor. I'm Travis Filmer's mother. Lori was lovely. It was like he was with us one day, and then the next thing you know, he's living with Lori.
This is the person I want to be with. Not only did I fall in love with Lori, but I fell in love with Aiden and Isabel, too.
Travis and Lori's love affair is moving quickly, and on New Year's Eve 2016, they decide to have a wedding ceremony right here in Lori's backyard.
had friends, family come over. It was fantastic.
I was told they were getting married this day, that time, and I showed up.
Lori had fixed up the 5-acre property prior to the occasion, putting in a backyard fire pit. The couple later etched their initials into the concrete around it. Lori walked out to the Brantley Gilbert song, Fall Into Me.
So we're sitting on bales of hay. My dad walks her down the aisle.
The ceremony was underneath this big oak tree.
Hi, Travis.
Hi, Travis.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. We did this to really just show everybody in front of God that we're committed to each other. This is a lifelong thing.
Travis, you may now kiss.
Yay!
So Lori has moved on to put her ex Michael Shaver behind her, but Michael's friends and family have not been able to do the same, still wondering why it's been so long. At this point, more than 2 years since any of them have laid eyes on him.
Clearly, something wasn't right.
And that lifelong friend, Scott Amatuccio, is about to make a stunning discovery.
It made my stomach sink right away.
Lori Shaver and Travis Filmer had a wedding ceremony in their backyard.
Until death do us part.
Just steps from that fire pit where their initials are etched in the concrete. And a year later, the couple had even more to celebrate.
And I looked at her and I was like, "Are you serious?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm pregnant." And I was just floored, like absolutely floored.
They would quickly add another child to their growing brood, along with the 2 kids Lori shared with her ex, Michael Shaver. Michael hadn't been seen by friends and family since he seemingly walked away from his life.
Michael would pop up every now and then with Facebook messages to his family, to his friends. I don't want to be bothered. I'm working on myself.
Even though the years were passing, friends and family said the occasional texts and Facebook messages led them to believe Michael wanted to be left alone.
Everybody rationalized it as give the man space. We knew what he was going through with the family by this point.
Yeah, I should have probably texted Mike more and called him, but we were never much into texting or phone calls. I had my first daughter, and I was so consumed in that. It was just not on my mind.
Scott then gets a phone call from his ex-fiancée, Katina Vasquez, that would change everything. She tells him she happened to be over at Michael and Lori's house 2.5 years ago, right after Lori said Michael skipped town.
She had noticed that Mike's possessions were there. Clothing was there, his wallet was there, his phone, all that was there.
His car was still there. His guns were still there.
Basically everything he owned.
Yes.
He walked away with nothing. I don't even know that he took his toothbrush.
Katina tells Scott that during that visit, she asked Lori where Michael was.
Lori told her that Mike got picked up in a black SUV one day, never came back. He would never do that to his family or kids. In a vacuum, you're not going to put anything together, but you start getting these other details. Clearly, something wasn't right. It's those details that made my stomach sink right away.
Eventually, Scott pieces together that no one has seen or spoken to Michael in 2.5 years. He decides it's time to reach out to Michael's sister in upstate New York to compare notes.
Scott and I just happened to be messaging back and forth one night, and we're like, none of this adds up.
Stacy and I had been talking. They were getting these weird messages. They'd be kind of short, out of character.
There was a wording that he didn't use. He never called me bro.
There was a couple there that said, just leave me alone, I'm moving to California. Just some crazy stuff that just didn't sound like him whatsoever.
He had texted me one day and asked, what's mom's number? I tried to call her. It must have changed. My mother's phone number has been the same for 30 years.
With his suspicions growing, Scott does what any of us might do when trying to track down his now long-lost friend. He logs onto Facebook.
I wasn't too active on Facebook back then, so I go to his page. And then I had noticed the profile picture had just been updated the month prior to through some group of guys in a bar. I had to zoom in and make sure nobody looked like Mike in that picture.
Scott then does a reverse Google image search trying to determine where this photo came from. Turns out it matches a photo from a Bloody Mary mix company.
Clearly, somebody took that picture online and put it as his profile picture.
And Michael's recent posts also seemed off. They were different from what he typically posted in the past.
His activity on Facebook was usually pictures of himself, pictures of friends, pictures about the plane that they would work on. But all of that ended, and then it started up with various silly memes that were just not in keeping with his personality whatsoever.
Michael's friend Scott, along with his sister Stacy, knew it was time for something drastic.
Since I was in New York and Scott was in Florida, Scott told me that he would go to the police.
And when I called, I said I'd like to file a missing person report. They asked, well, when's the last time you seen him? And frankly, I said, years. They didn't take me seriously at first because you now filed a missing person report years later.
Scott is able to convince police in Florida that his concerns are serious enough to warrant a welfare check. And when a deputy goes to Lori Shaver's house, something catches his eye that's been hiding in plain sight for years.
And that's when I really started getting chills up my back.
I'll take you there to see for yourself.
This has got to be the strangest case in my career.
What happened to your husband, though? Have you not seen him since 2015?
I had to rethink and re-question myself. Everything that had been happening was likely a lie.
And just when you think you know where this story is headed, a new twist.
Today, I'm coming to you. My family and I are begging you, asking for your assistance.
Everyone was just like, what?
There was just more and more twists and turns.
I'm living in the Twilight Zone, and I could hear the theme song going on. I've seen it on TV, on the news, but I never, ever imagined this would be happening next door to me.
That's when you knew something was up.
We just started asking her questions about the whereabouts of Shaver.
Did she say why he left? What happened?
She did not. She has no idea where he would be. Lori called me crying, saying the police are here and they're looking for Michael.
He proclaimed he had the special skills to kill somebody.
When you walked out here, were you immediately surprised?
I really started getting chills up my back.
But what about the chills when a totally unexpected person confesses?
Everyone was just like, what?
When you have a witness take the stand that says, I had a role in it, that's pretty incredible.
I know it sounds weird. I know it does.
The reality was that he was digging his own grave.
That was one of the most bizarre videos I've ever seen.
This has got to be the strangest case in my career that I've ever seen. It was as though this guy had literally just vanished.
November 7th, 2015 was the last time anyone saw Michael Shaver alive. His family hadn't seen him. His friends hadn't seen him.
No one had actually talked to him on the phone or talked to him in person. It was very weird.
They will tell you he would never, ever leave his 2 children.
He had 5 acres of property, a tractor. He walked away with nothing.
It's been 2.5 years since anyone has seen or spoken to Michael Shaver. His loved ones are concerned. So his longtime friend, Scott Amatuccio, decides to call law enforcement. He requests a welfare check.
So this is South Claremont. We're probably 40 minutes northwest of Orlando. So this is a very rural area.
Corporal Corey Anderson was one of 2 deputies that respond to the welfare check call that day in February 2018.
It was out of the ordinary. I haven't seen a call like that in a long time.
What about it felt unusual to you?
Usually, a well-being check is, hey, I haven't heard my friend in a while. Can you go check on him or have him call me? Not anything like he's missing, he's not responding to calls, he's making posts that aren't like him to make. People just don't up and leave, you know?
pull up to the house. What's the first thing you do when you get here?
Deputy Morris and I, we meet, and then we approach the house together.
Did someone answer the door?
Yes, Miss Shaver answered the door. She had a 2-week-old infant in her arm, so she stood on the porch, and we just started asking her questions about the whereabouts of Michael Shaver.
What was her demeanor like? Was she friendly?
She was cool as a cucumber, and it made it almost alarming. It gave me chills speaking with her.
Lori really didn't seem very apprehensive or nervous or surprised.
The way that she was answering questions, withholding information.
What kind of withholding of information?
Some of the dates that she used for when he was last seen, the last time he was at work, the day-to-day things that she would know weren't adding up.
Did she say why he left? What happened?
She did not. She simply said that he absconded and has not been seen or heard of. Has no idea where he would be.
Corporal Anderson then asks Lori if he can take a look in the backyard.
She welcomed them onto the property. She appeared to be very cooperative. She appeared as though she had nothing to hide. Obviously, they noticed it was a beautiful, sprawling 5-acre piece of property, and they were able to walk the outside of the property and look around.
The deputies noticed multiple outbuildings in the backyard, as well as a chicken coop, rabbit hutch, a fire pit, and an above-ground swimming pool. But when they ask if they can perform a more thorough search of the backyard, things take a turn.
And that's when her cooperation ended suddenly.
She said, "You guys need to get off my property."
Oh, immediately.
And you can contact my attorney. So that was a huge red flag for me.
That's when you knew something was up. She shut that down and couldn't get them out of there fast enough.
So detectives got the report from the deputies, and they began to plan their next steps and how they were going to move forward, back out to the property and do a more thorough search.
I had just left work. I was on my way home, and Lori called me crying, saying the police are here and they're looking for Michael. She was very upset. She seemed like she didn't really know what was going on.
Lake County deputies say it was his friend who initially reported him missing. Today, we're learning more about Michael Shaver.
I turned on the news, and that's when I hit that he's actually missing. It's not good.
I remember thinking it's a complete misunderstanding. They're gonna find that he just wasn't where he was supposed to be. It kind of snowballed into he's missing.
Working to learn what happened to a man who's been missing. Channel 9 was there from the beginning. We went out to her house and said, "Hey, your husband's missing. Is there anything you want to say?"
Wanted to ask you about the sheriff's office investigation into your missing husband. You have an attorney?
She basically told us to get away from her truck, and she didn't want to talk to us.
What happened to your husband, though? Have you not seen him since 2015?
His wife didn't report him missing at all, and years go by. You would think a spouse would want to talk and get his picture out, get the information out. She blew by her cameras. She had nothing to say.
Meanwhile, as detectives are digging for more clues into Michael's possible whereabouts, they discover some startling information.
They learned that his driver's license was expired. There was not a new driver's license issued in any other state.
Good luck. Have fun. Thank you.
His pilot's license were expired. There was literally no trace of Michael, no matter what they tried, no matter where they looked.
Detectives then start interviewing Michael's friends, relatives, and co-workers. They start building a timeline to try to pinpoint exactly when someone last laid eyes on him. And it turns out they think it was at that tractor show that Michael and his family attended 2.5 years earlier with his friend and co-worker, Frank Marin.
He was there at the tractor show, and then the next week he was gone, and there was nothing in between.
And it was just days later that Michael sent that strange text to his boss, abruptly quitting his job.
Based upon all of these bizarre circumstances, we knew something had happened to Michael.
3 weeks after that initial welfare check, detectives finally secure a search warrant for Lori Shaver's property.
It was a huge scene.
There was law enforcement up and down the road.
Investigators come in with cadaver dogs, and they start searching the property.
I've seen it on TV, on the news. close, but I never, ever imagined this would be happening next door to me.
One of the cadaver dogs is walked along the backyard and alerts to a dirt mound multiple times.
That's when they brought in all the big guns, the big equipment.
We began digging up that yard. We dug a very significant area. We realized that there was nothing to be found there. The fire pit was our next point of interest. Once they started digging, we heard some yelling.
All of a sudden I noticed activity happening and running around.
I could tell something had been discovered.
Florida's Lake County Sheriff's Office are back at Michael and Lori Shaver's home, armed with a search warrant. They're now scouring the property.
And they knew that it was something about that fire pit. Something was going on in that area.
The decision was made to bust up that concrete and dig down below that fire pit to see what we could find.
And there were tents up from investigators as they were excavating and sifting through the dirt.
Once they started digging, we heard some yelling. We knew we were onto something.
I have never seen anything like this before in person in my backyard. Oh, they're running.
At one point, investigators, crime scene technicians, they're digging in that area. We see them put their hands over their eyes, and we said, hey, something just happened.
And I can tell you that we have found what appears to be a bone that is consistent with that of a human upper arm bone.
They began to dig, and 3 feet below, there was Michael.
A gruesome discovery in a backyard in Florida.
Police are finding what believed to be human remains.
What did you find in that gravesite?
There was a blue tarp, and beneath the blue tarp were the remains of Michael Shaver. His body was found to be wearing a pair of underwear, a pair of shorts. He had on a pair of socks. There was a piece of a fitted sheet also around the body. So it was evident that the body had been wrapped up and placed in that grave.
How deep was this grave?
About 3.5 feet.
Investigators say the remains were skeletonized and looked like they had been there for quite some time.
When the body was discovered, Lori was sitting in her truck. My photographer and I walked over and we knocked on the window.
I'm on the phone with my attorney right now, and I'm not making a statement.
Shortly after, she took off. It just seemed strange that that's when she decided to take off and leave after being there for hours while the search was being conducted.
3 weeks before the remains were found, back on the day of that welfare check, Corporal Corey Anderson was convinced there was something underneath that concrete. And this is where the fire pit was.
Yes, the cement slab was here.
It's what he noticed then that raised investigators' suspicions enough to come back with a search warrant.
As I was approaching the cement slab, you could clearly see a depression, and I took out my cell phone and just started snapping pictures.
And you saw that depression. Were you immediately surprised?
I was, and that's when I really started getting chills up my back.
You immediately thought it was a shallow grave?
Absolutely. It's unmistakable. It was the size of a human adult body.
It was really a remarkable sequence of events where a deputy who actually had the experience that this particular deputy did just asked permission, hey, maybe guys mind if I take some pictures and walk around the back of the yard. The right person saw what started this case.
I mean, I consider Mike my best friend. It's pretty tough knowing that he's laying in the dirt like that.
It was absolutely devastating. Then I had to go and tell my mother. It was the hardest thing in the world I ever had to do.
I just started just wailing and crying, and it's a terrible thing. It's just terrible.
As painful as that moment was, Michael's family says, finally, all the hurt and confusion around his unexplained disappearance made sense.
When they said that they got all the remains out, I knew in my heart that was Mike.
Are you guys Michael's family?
Even though he couldn't have been identified that day, knew that it was.
Buried in the backyard. Police revealing new clues in the mystery disappearance of a husband.
I mean, that's just not something that we deal with and see every day. The media attention just grew.
Human remains were found buried in his wife's backyard.
The headline for the day was missing man's body found in his backyard. In that same place, his wife had remarried.
In the wedding video, you see her come down to that oak tree where they exchange vows. And her husband is dead, buried underneath that concrete slab that she's walking down to marry the next guy.
She had her wedding virtually on top of her husband's body.
We were sitting in the fire pit, by the fire pit, not knowing that Michael is under that fire pit. That's where I sat.
To what point?
So this whole scenario, it's like I'm living in the Twilight Zone and I can hear the theme song going on. Do-do-do-do-do. That's what's going on in my life.
Excuse me, sir. You guys know anything about what's going on inside? No comment?
When they found the remains under the fire pit, I couldn't believe that. Lori had kept telling me that she didn't know of anything.
But now investigators have Lori Shaver in their sights, and they want to hear exactly what she does know and when she knew it. After Michael Shaver's remains are recovered from a shallow grave in the backyard of the home he once shared with his wife Lori, the medical examiner determines that what put him there was a single gunshot to the head.
And the projectile was found inside of the skull. It was pretty much a straight-on shot to the back of the head.
Any DNA, any evidence of who would have put him there?
Pretty much everything in that grave site was sent to Florida Department of Law Enforcement for analysis, and there was no DNA that was found, mostly because of the decomposition process.
So over time, it's really hard to find DNA if it's in the ground, even if it had been there.
Yes.
But to many people's surprise, even after the gruesome discovery, Lori Shaver remains a free woman.
Lori wasn't immediately arrested, and that was something that was pretty frustrating for the family, but investigators had to build a case against her, and they knew that they would only get one shot.
Lori Shaver didn't get arrested right away.
Correct.
Why?
There were still phone records, Facebook records to obtain, piecing together all of these different pieces of evidence to try to figure out what happened.
We knew he was last seen November 7th and didn't show up to work November 10th. So we believe it happened during those 3 days that he was killed by Lori.
If that's true, that's months before Lori met Travis Filmer, who says he believed she was divorced from Michael Shaver.
Lori didn't divorce her husband during this time that Michael was missing. Lori never went after him for child support.
Finding out that Lori was not divorced, it was a shock. And detectives are the ones that told me.
Travis says that after Michael's body was found, he and Lori didn't discuss the investigation.
Lori and I, we didn't talk about things. She never told me that there was a body on the property. I know based on my experience with law enforcement and being in trouble, it was extremely important for me to not ask about anything. Did I have questions? 100%. I very much did. But I knew that I could not talk to her about the case.
But detectives are asking questions, interviewing those close to Lori like Katina Vasquez, the ex-fiancé of Michael's childhood friend. They wanted to know what she knew about Lori's supposed divorce from Michael Shaver.
She was telling me that she was filing for divorce. And then next thing you know, she's married. I was like, how does that happen that quick? Like, it was just weird. Like, I'm like, this makes no sense.
Investigators also tracked down that friend of Michael's who Lori said picked him up in a black SUV and drove him to Georgia.
Did you ever give him a ride to Georgia?
Georgia? No.
No. Do you recall what kind of vehicle you owned?
I believe it was a Mitsubishi Galant.
You remember what color it was?
Blue.
When detectives talk to the Shavers' neighbor, Wilma, they hear something really dark and unexpected. She tells them Michael Shaver actually started the project that eventually became the fire pit and concrete slab where his body was found.
He was working very hard to make her a duck pond back there. And the reality of what he was doing was that he was digging his own grave.
What physical evidence was there?
We have a body buried in the backyard. We have evidence of a gunshot wound. And we have a caliber bullet that was consistent with the type of weapon that was sold by Lori Shaver.
A
Another witness comes forward to say that after Michael disappeared, leaving everything behind, Lori began selling his belongings.
You are the owner of JB Guns in Bushnell, Florida, is that correct?
I am, yes, sir. After I had seen the news report and I saw the lady's picture, as in the wife of the missing person, I was like, I bought all of his guns, I'm pretty sure of. She's like, well, he just up and left. And I'm just selling all his stuff.
Key to this case, police think Lori Shaver was hiding that her husband was gone for good, pointing to data suggesting those Facebook updates and messages to family and friends, seemingly from Michael, were actually coming from her.
These Facebook message postings by both Lori Shaver's account and Michael Shaver's account had the same IP address, which means the same person was using them both.
Everything pointed back at Lori Shaver.
More than 2 years after Michael Shaver's remains were found, his wife has now been arrested for his death.
Lori Shaver is charged with second-degree murder with a firearm. She pleads not guilty.
I didn't understand how she was possibly arrested. Yes, they're saying that they found a body on the property. Yes, they're saying that Lori had some major involvement in this. There's always two sides to a story. There always is. There's no doubt in my mind that Lori she didn't kill Michael.
After about 2.5 months in jail, Lori Shaver is released on bond.
That's when this bizarre video surfaces of Lori and her defense attorney making a plea to please donate to her defense fund.
Good morning, I'm Jeffrey Wiggs. Sitting to my left is Lori, a client of mine.
I don't know why I've been targeted, why I've been set up, or charged with this heinous crime. I am not guilty. I am a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a neighbor, I'm a servant of God, I'm a wife, and I am a devoted mother of 4.
In that same video, Lori's attorney says his client is innocent, and at trial, they are prepared to say who actually killed Michael Shaver.
We're not going to mention his name. He proclaimed he had the special skills to kill somebody.
As her trial nears, Lori Shaver's attorney makes another shocking claim. Now, it's not just one person responsible for her husband's murder, but 2. And who they say that second shooter is takes everyone by surprise.
Honestly, I've never heard such crazy.
Happening today, jury selection will begin in the trial of a Claremont woman accused of killing her husband.
In September, almost 9 years after Michael Shaver was last seen alive, prosecutors are now hoping to prove that Lori Shaver was the one who killed him, but they'll have to do it without fingerprints, DNA, or other forensic evidence.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about common sense.
In your opening remarks, you made the comment that you have to use a little bit of common sense here.
We have the defendant's husband buried in her own backyard, and that points directly to Lori Shaver.
In their opening statement, the defense finally discloses who they say actually killed Michael Shaver. It wasn't Lori, it was Jeremy Townsend, or Jay, that man she had an affair with before meeting Travis. And they say someone else fired a shot too, Lori's then 7-year-old daughter, Isabel.
I shot my dad. That was a bombshell.
The defense presents a stunning story to the jury.
Isabel Shaver and this young girl, in desperation and in fear, runs and retrieves the firearm as she believes she shot Michael.
They were separated. Michael came in the residence one morning. Lori was getting the children ready for school. Lori refused to go back with him. He got angry, started beating on her. Lori ended up on the floor. Isabel retrieved a handgun, and she believes she shot Michael Shaver.
And at that very moment, the defense says Jeremy stormed into the house and took control.
And walks Jenny, takes a gun from Isabel, shoots Michael Shaver, says, Lori, get these kids out of here, I'll take care of this.
But prosecutors say this story is preposterous. They argue that Lori Shaver acted alone and killed Michael for her own selfish reasons, to be with her then boyfriend, Jeremy Townsend. What is the motive here?
Lori really wanted to be with Jeremy. She actively sought to ruin that relationship between Jeremy and his wife.
She pretended to be Michael in order to out Jeremy to his wife. And she tried to do that through Facebook messages from Michael's Facebook account. And when she didn't get a response from Jeremy's wife, Vanessa, she sent a bouquet of flowers to Vanessa with a card.
The card that came with those flowers, did that include a message?
It did.
And can you go ahead and read that message to the jury, please?
Right.
Ms. Town says it's a difficult day for you.
It is. Says roses are red, violets are blue. My wife is a whore. Your husband is too. Sorry about this. Check your Facebook message. We need to talk. Mike.
The flowers that were delivered to Vanessa Townsend were actually paid for from Lori Shaver's bank records. Up until this point, did you have any knowledge that your husband was potentially having an affair?
No.
Lori was convinced that Jay was leaving his wife, and that couldn't have been further from the truth.
State calls Jeremy Townsend.
He walked into the courtroom in a suit, but he looked like Aquaman with the long hair.
Was there ever a time that Lori Shaver expressed to you that she wanted you to leave your wife to be with her?
Yes.
And was that what you wanted?
No. They're supposed to be friends with benefits, no strings attached.
He went on and said, I had nothing to do with this.
At any point did you shoot or injure Michael Shaver?
No.
At any point were you involved with disposing of the body of Michael Shaver?
No.
And after the affair was exposed, what happened with your relationship with Lori?
I cut it off.
They say it's not the crime that gets you caught, but the cover-up. And prosecutors argue that Lori's attempts to impersonate Michael online show all the signs of a badly executed cover-up.
Facebook helped solve the murder.
Michael's family up north had heard from his Facebook account.
Was there a period of time where you reached out to Michael Shaver in attempts to communicate with him?
Yes. It says, hey, Uncle Michael.
And what was that response?
Who are you? I don't have any family anymore. I have no clue who you are. No, stop messaging me.
Lori was using his cell phone and his Facebook account to present this facade that Michael was still alive.
The defense argues the digital evidence is unreliable. It could have been anyone accessing Michael Shaver's Facebook account.
You'll ask yourself this: how does this digital data prove that Lori Shaver killed Michael Shaver? It doesn't.
But prosecutors say they have more than digital evidence. They argue that Lori had access to multiple firearms that could have killed Michael Shaver, including the pink and black .38 caliber revolver that she sold after Michael was last seen.
Did you examine that firearm?
Yes, I did.
Were you also provided a projectile recovered from the skull of Michael Shaver?
Yes. The projectile was in very rough condition.
Despite the damaged condition of that projectile, were you able to determine the caliber?
In this case, the caliber was determined to be .38 caliber class.
But the defense points out that the bullet recovered from Michael Shaver's skull could not be definitively linked to her pink handgun.
Let me just see if I'm summing this up correctly. The projectile that was in the body could not be linked up to the gun that you're sitting there on, correct?
All class characteristics were in agreement. The result of the individual comparison was inconclusive.
Okay. How many guns fit into that class?
Thousands of guns, if not tens of thousands.
With the state's case laid out, it's now the defense's turn, and they're about to call their star witness, Isabel Shaver, Lori and Michael's daughter, who was just 7 years old when he was last seen alive. She's now 15 and says she's prepared to tell the jury what really happened.
Isabel, I'm sorry. I have to do this. Do you know anything about the death of your father?
Have you given thought to taking the stand?
Still haven't decided. I would love to be able to speak my story.
Now, the defense also confirms with me that they say her daughter will take the stand.
Lori Shaver's defense is built on what she says really happened the day her husband died. And to lay out that story, they call to the stand the person they claim fired what they say was the first of two shots, her 15-year-old daughter, Isabel.
My name is Isabel Shaver.
Because she's a minor, Judge Carrie Rada does not allow Isabel's face to be shown during her testimony.
How old are you, Isabel?
I'm 15. I turned 16 this Sunday.
Would you explain your relationship to Lori Shaver?
Lori Shaver is my mother. Me and her are very close. She's like my best friend and a mom in one.
Has anybody pressured you to testify in this cause?
Absolutely not, no.
Do you know anything about the death of your father?
I do.
Do you know anything about how your father died?
I do.
Isabel tells jurors a stunning story that when she was just 7 years old, she witnessed a violent confrontation between her mother and her father, Michael, while the two were separated.
He pushed her onto the ground, and he started kicking her in the stomach and in the back. And he was, saying that he was going to kill her at this time. I heard my mom screaming for help, obviously, and then he put his foot on the side of her face and pushed it into the ground, and I didn't hear her anymore. And so I went to my mom's room, and I went at her end table, and I grabbed her gun, and I shot him.
Isabel Shaver goes on to say that after she fired that shot, the man her mother was dating at the time, Jeremy, or Jay as they called him, came barreling into the house.
He took the gun from me, and then he shot him again. He told my mom to take us out of the house, take us to school. We are not to tell anybody. We can't call the cops. We can't say anything, or else he's going to do the same thing to me and my brother.
Isabel stated this house was so riddled with so much atmospheric tension that it just didn't seem different. It just was kind of the way they were living. But she didn't say anything to anybody about it.
Remember, Jeremy Townsend testified he had no involvement in Michael Shaver's murder or the disposal of the body. And when prosecutors cross-examine Isabel, they challenge her memory of this event.
You know what grade you were in when that happened, right?
I don't.
You don't know what month this happened in, correct?
Correct.
You don't know what year this happened in, correct?
Yes.
When you have a witness take the stand that says, I had a role in it, that's pretty incredible.
I think it was very clear that she was willing to do whatever she could to try to protect her mother and avoid her mom going to prison. It also is not consistent at all with any of the physical evidence. Her version of events involved 2 shots, and there was absolutely no question that there was only one shot in this case, and that was the one to the back of the head.
The defense would call Lori Shaver.
Next up, the woman at the center of the case, facing life in prison, takes the stand in her own defense.
Let's talk about the event that's landed you here.
I got up, got my coffee, and then that's when I noticed he was sitting on the back patio. So I went out there, and we started talking, and it escalated. He was holding on to me. And, at that point, I was just trying to convince him, okay, enough, we'll work it out. And he told me not this time. I was screaming as he's smashing my face into the porch.
What's the next thing you recall?
I more or less heard it. And then I think I seen her.
What's Isabel do?
She fired a gunshot. The next thing I recall is seeing Jeremy, and hearing the gunshot essentially at the same time. He tells me to take the kids, get them out of the house, and he would take care of it. He insinuated that if we said anything, that he was not going to take the blame for this.
So what did you do?
I took the kids. I left.
Lori Shaver tells the jury that when she came home that day, Jeremy was gone, and so was Michael's body. According to Lori, she had no idea his remains were buried in her backyard.
Lori, the jurors are going to ask themselves, why didn't you call the police?
Scared? I didn't know what to do.
When prosecutors finally get their chance to question Lori Shaver, they challenge her for more details about what they say is a story full of lies.
The biggest question I have for you is, when did your husband get killed?
The exact date I cannot recall. It was beginning of May 2016. It was not November.
Prosecutors say Lori wants jurors to believe that Michael was actually alive in May because that's a full 6 months after he was last seen by anyone.
When he left and moved out, he left his car, correct? He stopped going to work and lost his job because of it, correct?
I was not aware of that at that time.
November 2015, he just vanishes off the face of the earth. No one can account for him, correct?
I don't believe that's true.
The day that he showed up in May of 2016, what vehicle did you use to get to your house that day? So you just walked? When you take what she said happened there that day, and then just break it down, well, if that's true, where was Mike's car? If that's true, when his body is found, why is he dressed like he was in bed sleeping?
It's hard to make a story fit all of the different pieces of evidence if it's not true.
She made up this May 2016 story to distract. Jeremy Townsend talked to law enforcement 3 separate times. The evidence that has been presented is not that in May of 2016, Jeremy Townsend shot this man in the back of the head. It's that Lori killed him in November of 2015. Mike is buried in her backyard. She's the one that installs the fire pit and puts the cement slab over his body. She lied to friends, family, and law enforcement about his whereabouts for years. All the evidence points to her because she is guilty of murder in the second degree. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Canuccio. Mr. Wiggs?
Yes, sir.
Has any single witness taken the stand and shown you one piece of evidence that established Lori Lee Shaver killed Michael Shaver? 0. 0.
And then it's left to the jury to decide which version of the story is the truth.
And you wondered in the end if the person who did this was ever going to be held responsible.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Closing arguments are done for the Lake County woman charged with her husband's murder.
She is facing 3 possible charges, second-degree murder being the biggest one, up to life in prison.
The biggest thing that I struggle with and that my heart breaks for is my kids. I don't want to see the look on their face when I have to tell them Mom's not coming home.
The jury deliberates for just under 4 hours before returning a verdict.
We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the charge. The defendant is guilty of second-degree murder.
The jury saw through all of her lies, manipulations, all of it. They didn't buy her story for a second. They didn't buy her daughter's story.
It was hard to hear Isabel saying those things about her dad, and I kind of feel really bad for her. Everybody that knows Mike knows he had a great relationship with both of his kids.
Your reaction, your thoughts as soon as that verdict came down?
Elation. We were very happy. This was a long time coming. It will not bring him back, but there will be justice for him finally.
It was celebration, sadness, several different emotions. She was part of our family. Somebody that you feel that you love and you trust. So also a letdown in some ways, and to see somebody that you did care for at one time that did something so bad.
No, I did not get the answers. Why? Why wouldn't she have just let him go? A divorce, she could have carried on her life.
She got married here. Yep, right out there. We walked by here, walked through here, walked all the way out, and yep, right past, a human being. That was just, it's so disturbing because, again, we've been out here. I've stood right where he was, and I didn't know.
It upsets you.
Yeah.
Michael, he was such a great, great person. He loved everybody with all that he had, and I think his spirit will finally be able to be at peace.
where my dad's cabin was, there are not a lot of people. You can't just call for help.
The area is very isolated. It can be very dangerous.
Everything was completely dark. And immediately, I knew it was bad. He came out with a gun. They didn't know, should I run, should I not? Is he gonna shoot me?
I remember thinking, I didn't even tell my parents where I was going today.
My biggest horror was like, who's gonna be next?
July 28th, 2015. I was 19 years old. I was just hanging out with some buddies, Will and Keen. Will was like, hey, let's go shooting. He just got a new 22. And we pack up, we get some rounds, get some guns, headed towards Caliente to Will's dad's cabin. Caliente, California. It's a beautiful place, really. It's about 25 minutes away from Bakersfield. And it's about 15 miles of rugged terrain going up to the cabin.
That desert area butts up against mountains where the trees start, so you have thick forest, and then it gets into very steep cliffs and very hazardous terrain.
I'm talking about rocks. I'm talking about going vertical on rocks. You need a four-wheel drive. A normal SUV won't get you up there. It has to be some type of off-road like vehicle.
They drove to a point where they park and then they take a quad and they drive up the rest of the way on a dirt road to the cabin.
We're just listening to rock music, talking mess. You know, we get to the cabin. It's very isolated. There's trailers, RVs, a full-out shooting range. Just a full-on man cave, basically.
As they park and they're getting their gear and everything, they are confronted by gentlemen.
My first thought was like, oh, that has to be like Will's family. So I was like, pretty cool at first. I was like, hey, what's up, dude? And I noticed he didn't say anything. He was wearing all green. He had a sawed-off 12 gauge. He had a bag that sounded like a bunch of rounds in it. He also had a pretty long knife sticking out of his sleeve. Like he was ready to like hunt or kill it. He was out in the wild and he was prepared for it. He approached us and my buddy Will was like, what the hell? What are you doing here? You're trespassing. And he's like, there's no one that lives here, it's just me. That's when I knew this is bad. And from there on, that's when everything went downhill. He was definitely saying crazy things. And he told us about the government dropping him from space in a body bag. Made him seem unhinged, made him just crazy. And I kind of started freaking out. I remember thinking like, man, I didn't even tell my parents where I was going today. I just took off.
Then he directed them into the cabin with him at gunpoint. They didn't know, should I run, should I not, is he gonna shoot me?
Outside the cabin, he specifically told us, you sit in one corner, you sit in one corner, and you sit in the middle. We were all scared. Your body goes into a certain state. You don't feel nothing. It's almost like you gotta think of your next move. Definitely was thinking of my mom, my dad, my sisters, you know. Like, damn, like, this is it. Didn't even say I love you. That was the rough part. At that time, I wasn't too religious, but I saved a prayer. He had the shotgun in my face, finger on the trigger, and he said, bang, bang, bang. And he's like, I can kill all you guys right now and get away with it. Nobody will know. Which he was completely right. you know, the middle of nowhere, no service. Yeah, you can definitely get away with it.
It's not uncommon in the rural areas for people to go out target shooting or hunting. And people are not going to hear the gunshots. And if they do, they may think it's just completely normal.
He wouldn't even have to bury him because he could have left him in the element and they would have been taken care of by the wild. And no trace of them. 3 young men have just disappeared off the face of the earth, and no one knows why.
During that time, he was back and forth. He's going outside, he's grabbing cans of food, grabbing ammo, grabbing whatever he thinks he needs. And he'll leave us in the room, and we kind of just be talking between each other. What are we gonna do? My buddy Will we're gonna try and take him down. And I told him, I was like, stop, dude. You're gonna get us killed. Do you really want to see one of our friends get shot, or do you really want to die here? He even actually has a bag of butane tanks. I thought for sure we were gonna die. I couldn't fight my way out. I couldn't shoot my way out. I couldn't run my way out. I was stuck. There's nothing I could do to get out of this situation besides talk. I mean, ask me, can we smoke a cigarette, you know? That's the least you can do for us. Hands a cigarette. We're just talking. He's telling us crazy things. He talked about him knowing the devil, that, you know, the devil brought him back to life. His last marriage, how it wasn't good. Talking about how he respects us. He even told us at one time, he's like, you guys are my friends. I love you guys. It was a roller coaster of emotions. I'm gonna kill you guys no matter what. But you're talking, trying to get out of it. It felt like torture. But in those few hours, we kind of started to figure him out. He was just on foot, breaking into those cabins out there, taking whatever he could. He was kind of just living freely out there. I mean, there's nobody around, there's nothing out there. I think he was more mad that he ran into us, if anything, you know. We kind of calmed him down to a point where we came up with a deal. Like, hey, you take all of our stuff, you take our guns, you take our side-by-side, you know, we'll just walk back and you'll be free.
They had told him, please just go, and we won't say anything.
He's like, you're just messing with me, you're just lying, you're just doing this to survive. Which we were. We all stuck to like a certain game plan. Like we're all on the same page on manipulating, on making this deal. And he's like, I respect you guys. That's why I'm gonna let you guys live. As crazy as it sounds. I shook his hand.
The suspect took the all-terrain vehicle and drove away in it.
That's when we ran out that cabin. It was just like a rush of getting the hell out of here. Didn't even look back, just ran. Ran straight to the riverbed. In that riverbed, there's a bunch of shrubs, there's a bunch of things that can hide us. And it would take us back to where we needed to be.
There's no cellular service in those areas, so they had to make their way to safety before they could even make contact with law enforcement.
We're traumatized. Any little thing, any wind, we're looking behind us. We started to realize, like, we're not making any way. The sun's already dropping. That riverbed is taking too long. So we got back onto the main road. And as we're walking down the main road, that's when we heard him coming back towards us. But he changed his mind. He was gonna come kill us. We're walking down the dirt road and we hear the side-by-side. He was coming back to us.
He did not want them going and reporting this particular incident.
They were actively being hunted down by him. He was mobile. They're on foot.
We all dove face first, and as we dove, we were capable of just rolling over and kind of hiding ourselves from the main road. Laid there for a good 5 minutes until we didn't hear that engine no more. And that's when we got back up and we started hiking that trail again.
There's no doubt in my mind that he would have eliminated those young men.
King was sick. I'm pretty sure he was dehydrated, scared, not a good mixture. And we had to walk miles.
If you're not equipped in the mountains, it can not only be scary, it can be deadly.
There's coyotes, there's mountain lions, there's a very high population of poisonous rattlesnakes. It can be very dangerous.
We seen some headlights. I thought that he was coming back to kill us. Our first reaction was to hide again, but as it got closer, we heard a voice. What are you guys doing? Like, where's the side by side? And that's when we knew it was Will's dad. That's when I kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. I'm gonna make it home. And you could tell by our faces, something happened. And that's when my buddy Will hysterically started saying, we got held hostage, shotgun to our head, by a crazy man, and he took everything. That was the only way we were gonna survive. Will's dad takes a deep breath and just like, what? And he's like, yeah, we got stuck up. It was a quiet ride. I didn't speak. I was just thinking of what just happened. Like, I should be dead.
Thank God they escaped and reported to law enforcement.
In 2015, I was a senior deputy for the Kern County Sheriff's Department. I had a dual role as a detective and then also as a SWAT team sniper. We have a special operations group team that is primarily SWAT team members that do special missions.
We realized how lucky these three young men were, and the manhunt really started.
At some point, the kidnapper tried to get out of the area with that vehicle and managed to get it stuck.
He got it stuck in a very, very remote area to where it was completely inoperable, and he fled on foot from that vehicle.
The SWAT team tried to follow the tracks as far as they could, and based on the terrain and everything, they lost the tracks. The three young men did a drawing to give us a general idea of what the guy might look like. We knew he had darker skin, black hair, he wore glasses and kind of wore clothing that looked like he might have been a hiker, but that's about it. We had nothing on this guy. We didn't know who he was, we didn't know where he was, and we didn't know what his capability was. We were worried he was going to hurt somebody eventually if we didn't find him.
July 30th was a Thursday. Thursday nights are an easygoing, relaxing night. We play video games with the kids. That night, I saw my mother-in-law calling me, and so I answered, and she was kind of hysterical, saying that Dave hadn't checked in that night. Dave was my father-in-law, and he normally checks in before dark.
My dad's cabin was out in Jawbone Canyon. He loved it. He would wake up at 5 o'clock and hop in his truck and go out there. The only reason my mom was not with him was she was recovering from a surgery. But he always checked in at probably around 6 p.m. Sun would still be up. Hey, just want to let you know that I'm in for the night, and, everything was great.
Cheryl was a bit distraught and wanted to go out and check to see if he was okay.
Early 2000s, is when he actually purchased the cabin. It was absolutely beautiful. It was a wood, kind of like looking like a log cabin, and windows everywhere. It faced where they had fields, it faced the pond, very isolated. And of course, that was part of the charm. It was very relaxing because we don't have cell reception. That let us unplug just from life. It just gave us a couple days where really all you did was just enjoy where you were, like in the moment. Like you're just on vacation in this cool little cabin up there.
When he bought that, he was looking for a place to just have his own kind of refuge. He wanted his own spot where he could do just what he wanted to do, make it his own.
My grandpa grew up gold mining, and so he taught my dad, and my dad just loved it. We used to joke, I said, "You're the only dentist that has a dump truck and a dynamite permit." I just think to myself and laugh, like, my dad is so cool. Where my dad's cabin was, there are not a lot of people. So your nearest neighbor, you can't just call for help. I mean, that's really scary. And here's my dad, who's just out there because that's his retirement. He loves it.
Cheryl comes over to the house, and she's very upset at this point and wants me to drive. So she says, "You know the road better, you know the place better. Can you drive? And we'll go from there."
From our house to get to the cabin, it could go anywhere from an hour and 5 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on conditions. But I have to stay home because I've got 2 little kids that are now in bed. My mom and Ryan leave about 9:30. And now the time is ticking, and I'm waiting. I'm kind of doing this vicious cycle of cell phone calls. I'm calling my dad's satellite phone, his cell phone, the house phone. I'm starting to now get a little panicked, and I'm starting to yell a little louder, "Dad, it's Christy. Dad, like, you need to pick up this phone. I'm really worried."
Earlier in the week, it was on social media. Somebody had mentioned something about some boys getting kidnapped and not a lot of information about it. I thought that's somewhat close as the crow flies, but crossing that distance would take, especially on foot, quite a while. So I didn't think too much of it. As we pulled up in the headlights, I could see on the ranch road where it looked like a car had skidded to a stop and pushed up dirt in front of the tires.
My dad was very meticulous about keeping the roads really nice. That's not something my dad would ever leave.
If he had done something like that, he would have got out, raked it flat, and made it look pretty again. Immediately, I thought that was odd. When we approached the cabin, everything was completely dark, and his truck isn't there. So we think he's not here, he's not around. I asked Cheryl, "Do you think we should check the cabin just in case?" And she said, "Yes." Cheryl was still very frantic, as was I. I was worried just because everything seemingly looked fairly normal. I had packed up my rifle just in case. You never know if an animal is an issue, and on the rare case, there could be a person. I grabbed my rifle, had my flashlight. Cheryl was up on the steps going into the cabin, and I was hanging back just a little bit, shining my flashlight, just making sure there was nothing out of the ordinary. I noticed that back window was open and it seemed off. I followed Cheryl in, and it was dark inside. I still had my flashlight on, so I could see a little bit. And I walked around the corner, and immediately she screamed, "Oh no." And I knew at that moment it was bad.
Ryan runs into the kitchen. And there was my dad.
He'd been shot, and I immediately knew he was dead. I knew what I was saying, I knew what was happening, but I couldn't quite comprehend it.
Ryan immediately runs to my mom, and he's like, "We have to get out of here."
we were in grave potential danger. Somebody could be out here right now. We jumped into the vehicle. And I thought, what if somebody climbed in here while we were inside? I said, Cheryl, make sure there's nobody hiding in the back right now. Everything's good. We start going down the county road, and a lot of that's a blur. We were both hysterical. It took us about a half hour to get back to the cell signal. And we stop, and Cheryl calls 911. And from there, dispatch does their thing.
At this point in time, our homicide detectives were working the scene, collecting evidence. What we did learn early on is that his vehicle was missing from the residence. Daybreak the next day, we did locate his vehicle run off of a remote road, stuck in very similar fashion to the ATV. And outside of Mr. Markowitz's vehicle, we were able to locate shoe track on the ground outside of the driver's side door. Those boot marks were very, very similar in pattern and size to the boot marks that we located and were initially tracking at the cabin where the 3 young adults were held against their will. That was a very significant escalation in the case.
We suspected this was the same person that had eluded us the first time. I was really concerned that he's out there free, running around.
We're in the span of 2 days, and we know this person has not only kidnapped and held people against their will and threatened them at gunpoint, he's now murdered an innocent person.
When you have someone who has no qualms about taking a life from a complete stranger, that means he has no problems taking another life if they happen to cross him. So this is a person who needs to be stopped.
That makes this a all-hands-on-deck investigation. We dispatched special weapons and tactics team members to Mr. Markowitz's cabin, and we began tactical operations in that area.
Man tracking, it's not the same as search and rescue. Search and rescue, you're looking for someone who wants to be found. When you're man tracking, that person's trying to avoid you, and they've already got time on you, they've already got distance on you. Our whole SWAT team was split up into 2 10-man groups. Each team had a couple snipers. We had off-road vehicles. We had the helicopter flying. The plan was to hopefully find the tracks up ahead further so that then we could gain ground on the person. Find this person as fast as possible.
We realized that he probably knew what we were doing because every day was a different track. He doubled back. He was circling around. He knows we know what he did, so he used every trick that he knew to evade us.
It appeared that this person not only knew the area, but he was leading caches around for him to come back to so he could move back and forth and resupply, which tells us that he's thinking ahead. Every little thing can be a clue. It's not just footprints, candy wrapper, cigarette butt, broken branches. All this stuff these are clues.
We found a water bottle and some supplies that were abandoned.
Bottle had been used. It wasn't fresh. It wasn't sealed. So we thought maybe we could get a DNA hit on it. It was delivered to the labs. They did get a positive hit, and that's where we first identify the stranger we've been tracking this whole time.
The suspect was Benjamin Peter Ashley.
Several years back, he had been arrested for breaking into houses and burglarizing the house. And so he was in our system. So we had a picture, we had a name, age, all of that. He was from the LA area, and he was a drifter. Just kind of did his own thing, and he was very familiar with the area and was an avid hiker.
Dealing with somebody that we think may know this terrain puts us on more high alert.
This was a mountain man, very capable of eluding us. He was in really good shape. He was acclimated to that type of terrain. He was acclimated to that type of weather. We were in his element, not ours. And when you're in the other person's element, they have an advantage.
On the morning of August 1st, 2015, we continued tracking.
As we came across structures and trailers and residences that appeared maybe unsecured, and there was nobody obviously there, we would search those to ensure that this person wasn't there.
Now, this is a small team because we were a tracking team. This was not the typical SWAT call out. We find the track again on a dirt road and we start following it. And the tracks go into a field and towards a house. I tried the door and it's unlocked. I let my team leader know, hey, we got an unlocked door, and we make a game plan. I will go first. I didn't see anything out of place that it just didn't feel right. I take 2 more steps, and then I feel the bones in both my arms break at the same time. And next thing I know, I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm laying on my back, and I see that there's blood on both my arms, and I call out that I'm hit, and all hell breaks loose. Benjamin Ashley was shooting at my team, and my team was backing out of the house to get away from the gunfire. I can't fight back. Both my arms are down. I can't get up. And so I was kind of laying there thinking the last thing I was going to see was Ashley look at me, point a gun in my face, and that was going to be it for me. About that time, one of my teammates grabbed me and drags me out of the room and onto the deck. And while the team was shooting the house, they were trying to patch me up. The bullet shattered the bone in my forearm and blew out the artery, and they were trying to stop the bleeding and save my life. And because of that, Benjamin Ashley was able to escape out the back door of the house, and he ran off into the forest.
We couldn't chase him because he had the advantage. He knew the terrain. So we focused on getting Booker to survive his wounds. And thankfully we had our helicopter close and we loaded him up and got him to medical aid.
If he had just waited a second longer, if I had taken another step, it wouldn't have hit my arms. It would have hit underneath my armpit where my armor doesn't cover, and it would have gone through lungs and heart, and I wouldn't be here.
We now know this person just has no fear and will do anything humanly possible to evade capture.
I was really concerned that he was going to hurt more of my team, or if he was going to hurt somebody who just lives out there and minding their own business. That was my biggest horror about it. It was like, who's going to be next?
In those initial days after Booker was shot, we had either lost track or the terrain was not capable of preserving a track. It was evident that we were going to have to try to do something differently at this point.
Mr. Ashley is 34 years old, 5'11", 180 pounds, black hair, green eyes, and is a black male. And with that, I can't go into too great a detail in this investigation because it's still ongoing. But again, I'd like to commend the officers and the civilians of this organization for the commitment, the tenacity to get to where we're at, and we're not done yet.
This is very, very widely broadcast in the media, and the community took a vested interest in this and wanted not only safety and closure, but wanted to support us.
It is almost like the worst game of telephone people have ever played. You don't know what's correct. You're watching the news. You're getting phone calls from, sheriffs, detectives, this and that. And they kind of had lost the track for a little bit. Now we're scared. Is he coming to get us now? Like, a lot of irrational things go through your head.
I heard that he had shot and killed somebody. And I felt depressed. My first thought was like, we could have stopped all this. Maybe we could have possibly held him down. But I felt like God gave us a reason to live. He let us live that day. And I would almost say it's a miracle, because I still think till today we should have been dead.
August, as hot as it gets in Kern County. We had to be careful that we didn't get heat exhaustion.
Our personnel are getting very little sleep, hiking miles per day, wearing body armor and carrying equipment. Our tactical team members were being very vigilant on the lookout for where could somebody hide. Is he in a cave? Is he in a mine shaft? What's going to prevent him from ambushing law enforcement?
A lot to think about from our safety standpoint, not just capturing Benjamin Peter Ashley, but we're not going to come off this till we have Benjamin Peter Ashley in custody.
August 15th, we get a call from Brady's Mini Market in the community of Inyo Kern.
This was approximately 20 miles from where I was shot. The clerk explained that the person that was on the news just walked in the store, got some ice cream, a couple candy bars, and then left.
We dispatched patrol deputies out to the Brady's Market in Inyo Kern, and they were directed to a trail behind the market to where the person was last seen.
When the person saw that he hid behind a tall bush where they couldn't see him, and they stopped and they drew down on him.
We know what we're up against. This is somebody who is not going to comply with us.
They were challenging him, saying, "Come out with your hands up." And he came out with a gun. He wasn't going to go quietly. The patrol officers pulled up and confronted Benjamin Ashley. They gave the orders to come out with your hands up. He came out with a gun. And at that point, they had their weapons drawn.
He was given every opportunity to turn himself in and chose not to.
That's when an officer-involved shooting occurred. Benjamin Peter Ashley was ultimately shot and killed by our deputies.
I never feel joy for a death. You don't know what was going through Benjamin Peter Ashley's mind, but at the end of the day, none of that matters when it comes time to protect your community.
Why kidnap 3 young men that have nothing to do with you? Why kill a person in their own home? I think that he wanted to stay incognito and just do what he's wanted to do without any resistance. He was worried they would call for the sheriff's department and people would be looking for him. He obviously didn't want that.
Seems to me like this was like 6 weeks of a manhunt, but it was 18 days.
It was a 24-hour-a-day operation for 18 days. That's nothing that we had experienced. And the support that we received from our leadership, as well as the community, it couldn't have been accomplished without that support.
I needed to know that he wasn't a threat anymore. So I drove out there, and it was definitely him. That was a relief for me, kind of an ending to this whole nightmare. The hunt is over. We're done.
I get a call from my brother. He says, they killed him. I'm like, what? No, they got him.
At the time, I was, like, hell yeah. I was happy, but now that I grew older, man, I kind of wish that guy could get some help, figure out what the hell is wrong with that guy.
If I had to piece together what I thought happened, I think Dave was done for the day, working, mining, and came back to the house, opened a window or two, had that guy been watching, and snuck inside, and took that opportunity to shoot him. That's maybe what happened. Unfortunately, Dave being such a loving, sharing, caring kind of guy, This guy could have come up to him with any kind of story, and Dave would have helped him.
I've been out in the wilderness, been camping, been shooting, but never went back to Caliente, California. Never been back.
It changed my life forever. 12 surgeries later, and a couple years of physical therapy and everything, and getting things back to right, and I'm back with my family and not with the sheriff's department anymore.
My dad was one of my husband's best friends. And that was hard because it was like my husband losing his dad, just because my dad always treated my husband just like his son. It was never, well, that's my daughter's husband. It was, that's his son.
Without David, it's like there's a void, the missing piece. I miss him a lot. There's so many different things that we would do on a regular basis out there between mining, and hunting, and shooting, and fishing. That kind of stuff would have been done, monthly. We'd be out there all the time, and now that hasn't happened.
Life can change in a heartbeat. After that instance, you're like, when's the last time you're going to tell someone you love them? When? So never forget to say I love you. Just cherish life. Cherish the things that matter. Don't worry about the things that don't. To the ones that you love a little tighter, because life is definitely precious and it's a gift.
People think if you're in a cabin community, everybody's friendly, but that's not the vibe of that area.
This cabin was right out of a horror movie. It was a place where things happen, bad things.
There was a cabin, and inside were miserable living conditions.
The question was, who died and what was the manner of death?
He stated that this intruder had broke into the cabin and attacked them both.
It was the worst feeling, knowing that that's the last thing that she ever saw was inside that cabin.
There was a chainsaw underneath the house. I've never seen some blood.
It's the most cold-blooded thing I've seen in 33 years of police work.
He kept putting the gun at my face and asking if I could feel it.
She was not going to die there in the cabin. She was not going to let that be the end of her story.
This program is rated 14 plus and contains scenes of violence and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
He wouldn't sleep for nights, and he was just walking around the room, just crying and saying like, what I can offer my son now, what I can offer you now, how are we gonna make it?
This is the back entrance that they walked in, and that's when I first heard the first shot. As I was standing here, I heard, I swear to my mother's grave, I will pay you back. Please calm down, put that down.
I was out for a walk, and somebody texted me the news that there had been a shooting at Mallard Road, and as soon as I saw that there had been a shooting at Mallard Road, I knew exactly what had happened.
Most people think it's victimless crime.
There's no blood on the sidewalk.
There's no blood on the sidewalk. It's not sexy.
There's no police tape around the crime scene.
Exactly. Until there is.
Because of these 4 people, my life had changed forever.
Good evening and welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. When heading to work in the morning or dropping the kids off at school, the last thing on one's mind is someone showing up with a gun. But that sense of security was shattered for one Toronto community in June of 2024. Here now is Sean O'Shea with Deadly Retribution.
June 17th.
Yeah.
How did that day start for you?
There were tons that I was shooting that day. I'm sitting there in my office, and I hear a big bang. And the bang was so loud, and it was... it's unbelievable, but I felt the wave hitting my face. It was that sort of bang. Got up from my chair and went to the door by the corridor, and then I heard, shouting and quarrel, and,
How many voices in that argument do you recall?
One. I was hearing one shouting. So I thought, okay, it's none of my business. I went back to my seat behind my desk, continued my work. Didn't come to my mind that that was a gunshot.
Breaking news to lead us off tonight with Toronto police after a shooting in Don Mills. That's right, police were called to Don Mills Road and Mallard Road at around 3:25 p.m. Now that is located between Lawrence Avenue and York Mills Road. There are 2 schools and a daycare nearby. Let's go live now to our Sean O'Shea, who is at the scene for us.
Yes, we're at a daycare, and there are 2 schools. There's North Mount Middle School, there's Westfield Secondary School, and of course St. George Mini School and Infant Care. And it's those little kids who were in lockdown. Anxious parents were outside waiting to reunited with those children, not sure whether they were okay.
They're taking our name down and then they're evacuating the daycares first. We're just waiting for them to bring our kids outside, and that's all we know. We don't know what happened.
Pretty emotional here. These are the little kids coming back out. These parents have been waiting for some time to find out if their kids were okay. Lots of tears, lots of hugs, lots of hope that everything was going to be okay, because witnesses had heard about those shots fired. They knew something had gone wrong, and they didn't know who was safe and who was hurt. And according to a witness, there was some kind of a disagreement which resulted in a series of shots.
I heard the shot first. Then I came out, quarreled. Then I went back to my seat. 2 minutes later, another shot.
How many shots did you hear?
At the beginning, 2. And when I came out and when it all ended, 5, 6, I think.
Can you tell us anything about the argument that you overheard?
I have no idea. I got no idea what it was all about. And I was too afraid, to be honest with you, too afraid to go forward and see what's going on. Because the guy had a gun.
Have you ever heard fighting in that office before?
No.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to speak with you this evening about a call for service that the Toronto Police Service received at a commercial premises located just behind me. At approximately 3:25 p.m., we received a call for service in relation to sound of gunshots. Officers attended quite quickly. They entered the premises where they located 3 individuals. I'm not going to be identifying the individuals any further other than to say they're 3 adults, 2 males, and 1 female. We're still in the process of notifying next of kin.
What kind of weapon or how many shots were fired?
It's early for me to say how many shots were fired, and I don't really want to speculate on the weapon. It's obviously a firearm was discharged.
You talked about 2 men and a woman. Is the gender of the shooter female or male?
It's male. It's my understanding early on that perhaps this is there's some sort of financial transaction, businesses that are being facilitated here, but it's early on in the investigation, and I can't say for sure.
Welcome back to Crime Beat. On June 17th, 2024, Sharak Biniaz was working in his photography studio in the hall from his friend Arash Masagi and Masagi's employee Samira Yousefi, when suddenly Biniaz says he heard an argument and then gunshots. We now return to Sean O'Shea with deadly retribution.
It's a significant space.
It's a very big space. This is the first time back.
This is the door you would come in?
Yeah, we would come in and go out.
So this is the room which was your studio?
That's correct, yeah.
And all that's left is your furniture?
Right. I mean, I'm thinking of it every day, but being back here, all the scenes is right in front of my eyes right now. It was an investment company. A friend of mine who knew Arash, and he introduced me to him. I started working for him as a graphic designer, doing their food labels and things like that. And one day he called me, he said, look, I'm in 25 Mallard, and do you want to come and work with me? I had a big photography and videography studio. Arash was kind enough to let me use that space without charging me anything. Very nice guy.
Fair to say you hit it off? You got along?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever feel unsafe in the building for any reason?
No.
He wasn't the only person in that office that you knew?
No, it was him and Samira. I didn't talk to her much, but whenever we did, it was pleasant, yeah. She was just a mortgage broker.
Did you get a sense that there were angry people on the other end of the phone?
No, just normal. It was strange that the doors were always closed.
Was that a bit unusual?
It was, yeah. It was, but again, I didn't think much of it. So, 2 months prior to the incident, I had bought a drone. I thought best place to practice it, with joystick and all that, would be in my office building. So, this is the area, this is the entrance, the back entrance that they walked in, and the back door which they entered is here. Arash sort of opened the door. I think he was waiting for him in the parking lot, and then as soon as he sees Arash, he pushed him in, and then he fired one shot. And that's when I first heard the first shot, which was very loud. Samira heard the shot as well. She walks out. He directs both of them towards this corridor. Through this corridor towards the reception, the main entrance of the company. And then I heard another bang, but this time the bang was not as loud as the first one. And then from after that, I heard the scream. Samira screaming. Just a scream, and she was... her voice was really, scared. So after the second shot, I heard Samira screaming, and that's when I came out of my office, through the corridor, stood there, and that's where I heard Arash pleading, saying that, I swear to my mom's grave that I would pay you back, just calm down, put that down. And that's when I realized it was a gunfire, gunshot.
You can't see around the corner,
exactly,
but you can hear better.
The shooter said, how are you going to pay me back? And that's when Samira said, I will sell my house, just calm down, put that down.
She was afraid.
Oh, yeah. So was Arash. Arash's voice was really afraid. And that was the last things I heard, and I slowly just walked out of the back door. And I was about here when I called 911. So I called 911. And she said, okay, sir, just stay calm, and someone will be there shortly. I saw a police officer coming from Don Mills to Mallard, and then I just walked and started waving at him. Then I started walking him through the back door there, and he walked in, and he didn't even pull out his gun, And I said, he's armed, you need backup. I heard shooting. He said, backup's coming, don't worry. And then 2 other police cars, or 3, came. And I was here when the officers walked out of the car. I walked towards the officer and handed them my key, and I said, there's been a shooting, and there's an officer inside. That's when the shooting started. And when the shots came, I was standing there, and that's where... When I heard the first officer shouting, it's police, come out, it's police, come out. But there was no word, and then he came and opened this door, and the other police officers walked in, and I said, how are my friends, how are my friends? And then they started putting the yellow tape. I was scared. I didn't want to believe it.
3 dead. Police have confirmed that, and sources are telling us the police are investigating this as a murder-suicide. So what we're waiting on now here at the scene is information from the police, more details as this investigation is just actually beginning.
As I've indicated, the premises behind me was being operated as a business premises, and it's our belief at this point that the altercation that took place in there was in relation to that business.
My husband is a very happy person that I met 9 years ago. It was being in love from the first moment, from first date. The energy, the love he can give, the way how he... His favorite bracelets, he always wear them. I love all of these pictures. This pictures means a lot for me. I miss him a lot every day.
When you woke up on June the 17th, did you have any sense of what was going to happen that day?
No. He woke up early, like usually, like 6 a.m. he continued his preparation for work. I continue my routine with kids. He hugged me and he was shaking. I told him, why are you shaking? You want I come with you to work? He said, no, it's a small job. I'm gonna finish it fast. I'm gonna come back before 3 p.m. And he was like very strict. He doesn't want me to come with him. He told me that he's sorry, but he usually every day say that he's sorry. And he said he's sorry and he loves me.
When did you find out what had happened that day, and how did you find out?
I got a call from his father, and there was policeman that spoke with me. And first thing he asked if I have firearm at home, and then it scared me. Police told me that he took his own life, and that's all.
They didn't tell you any of the circumstances?
No.
Did you find a suicide note?
I did. It's a very small note. So note says, my death is on hands of Samira Yosef, Arash Masagi, Shahrail Mazaheri, Frederick Yak. Stop these criminals from destroying people's lives. Because of these 4 people, my life will change forever.
And those other 2 names are the names of the 2 lawyers who were involved?
Yes.
Welcome back. Elisa Pogorelowski has just learned that her husband, Alan Katz, instead of going to work, went and killed 2 people. In his suicide note, he named 4 individuals: the shooting victims, Arash Masagi, Samira Yousefi, and 2 lawyers. Here again is Sean O'Shea with Deadly Retribution.
I'm Sean O'Shea with Global News. How are you? I'm trying to reach Mr. Missouri, please.
He's on vacation until July 2nd.
Really? We attempted to speak with Shahryar Mazahari shortly after the shooting in June. We're following up on the shooting death, and we're following up on the litigation involving the lawyer. He didn't respond to us then, and when we put out word again that we hoped to speak with him for this program, he declined our request. And when we put out the word again, as for the other lawyer named in the suicide note, Frederick Yak, his lawyer told us, quote, unfortunately, because these matters are before the court, my client politely declines your request for interview or comment. Both lawyers denied any knowledge of the alleged schemes and any wrongdoing. They also denied offering the couple legal advice.
My name is Peter Smiley, and I have been litigating against Mr. Masagi and his associates for going on 7 years, I would say. I was out for a walk, and somebody texted me the news that there had been a shooting at Mallard Road, and as soon as I saw that there had been a shooting at Mallard Road, I knew exactly what had happened.
I remember hearing on the media that there had been a shooting on Mallard Road, and immediately I said to one of my colleagues, I bet you that was Arash Masagi that was shot. I'm Brian King. We are private investigators that work on white-collar crime. Probably, 15 to 20 years ago, his name first appeared on some of our files.
Well, Arash Masagi was never convicted of fraud. For over 2 decades, he's been in and out of court defending his business dealings.
So the real bread and butter of Masagi's fraudulent schemes was mortgage fraud.
In other words, convincing people that there is an opportunity for very high interest rate returns on investing in private lending and mortgages.
He would say, I have a borrower who owns a very valuable property. I will register a mortgage against that property, and your investment will be secured by way of a mortgage on title. And if the money doesn't get paid back, then we will sell the property, you'll get your money, you'll get a very generous rate of return.
How did you hear about this investment opportunity?
We have a close friends, and they did the same, and it worked very good with them. So I go to the bank to ask the property loan under my house, and I got the loan for the investments. They tell me that my return would be good enough to pay the loan and save the money. My husband, it was his idea from the beginning. The idea was to make money work for us.
People tend to be, I don't want to say greedy, but they tend to want to get ahead. If it's too good to be true, it's not true.
And Mr. Misagi was very good at making these quote-unquote investment opportunities seem legitimate by involving lawyers and essentially people who were willing to use their professional position to give his schemes an air of legitimacy. And a classic example of that is the mortgage broker Samira Yousefi. She was a licensed real estate agent, appears to have had a legitimate real estate practice, but somehow fell into Mr. Misagi's orbit. He would identify, say, for example, real estate lawyers who are just out of law school looking to get a start in their careers, and he would say, we have offices at Mallard Road, the site of the shooting. We will give you free rent, and we will give you real estate work to do, and it will be a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Arash Misagi was reportedly born in Tehran and immigrated to Canada as a child after the Iranian Revolution. And he used those ties to his advantage.
A lot of Misagi's victims were from immigrant communities like the Persian community, the Russian community.
Often these groups will prey on people new to the country too. They may have only been in the country for a few years.
You believed him?
I've never had experience of people like that, of investments like that.
In the beginning, everything was good.
Yeah. In first, 4 months.
Now, this was also happening at a time where the real estate market in Toronto is skyrocketing. There is a perception that real estate is the ultimate investment.
One day, he just stopped answering the calls. That's all.
And then what happened to this money that was supposed to be coming in?
It didn't come in.
And your husband is calling, trying to get answers. He's emailing.
Tomorrow, day after tomorrow.
So what do you guys do for a living? You do everything.
In late 2023, they got an in-person meeting with Arash Misagi, except they say he was using an alias.
So what happened is this one, Samira personally guaranteed this is the safest thing.
Alan Katz taped the conversation.
And then in September, the check bounced. And it's due on which days of the month? Is it the 15th? Oh, the 15th, yeah, okay. Okay, don't worry. I'll talk to her, I'll get this all straightened out. I'll talk to the borrower on each one. I'll talk to her, I'll get the bank statements, and I'll make you a full report.
He gave us so much hopes that it never happened. It's affected us a lot. It was a big stress. Because we have to continue pay our loan, and it's $9,000 every month. I cried every day because we couldn't stand these bills.
In January 2024, she says they went to police.
Fraud is very frustrating, and especially as a police officer, you often have to say to them, what are you seeking here? Are you looking for recovery of your funds, or are you looking for justice to be done on the person who took your money? We're in the justice business. We're not in the recovery business.
Elisa says police took down their information, but then it felt like nothing happened. Police are overwhelmed with complaints when it comes to fraud. Fair statement?
Absolutely.
Fair to say not all of it can be given the same priority?
Absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. So I can tell you in 2024, Toronto Police Service, we received almost 17,000 fraud reports. I think in this case, in these cases, and in many fraud cases, many victims of fraud are let down.
Scared and confused, the couple pursued their case against Arash Misagi in civil court.
The first time I met Mr. Misagi was cross-examining him and his wife on a affidavit they'd sworn in one of the proceedings that I was counsel on. He was a physically intimidating person. He had a very intense stare. He would be very gruff. And everything that he did was to let you know that he was untouchable and he was beyond the reach of the legal system. And unfortunately, he was right.
One of the first things that someone suing Arash Misagi would find out is that years earlier, he'd entered into bankruptcy.
And once he was bankrupt and sort of immune from civil consequences, that's when his career of fraud really took off. because Mr. Misagi was a very sophisticated business person, very familiar with our legal system. He was very good at creating these thickets of shell corporations and co-conspirators, which was very expensive to navigate and very difficult to navigate, particularly when you've just had your life savings stolen from you. Lots of people have got their money back, but they've got significantly less than they lost. If it ever looked like you were going to get him in the stand in front of the judge, bring him to trial, he would just offer you an insulting settlement. In the 20 years since he was found liable for fraud in New York, I'm not aware of any civil finding of fraud against Mr. Misagi, and I'm not aware of any criminal convictions against Mr. Misagi. And that's what he did until ultimately Mr. Katz reached the end of his rope.
Part of fraud that's different than any other offense, any other crime, is that the victim, the complainant, has taken part. You've been fooled. It's not a thief reaching into your wallet and running off with it. It's the thief convincing you to reach into your pocket and say, here's my wallet.
We stopped sleeping, eating, function. We stopped. We couldn't continue. It was very hard. He wouldn't sleep for nights, and he was just walking around the room, just crying and sitting, watching the wall.
Was Alan getting angry?
Yeah, he was angry. Yeah, we was crying together. Yes, he was like saying like, what I can offer my son now, what I can offer you now, how are we gonna make it?
As I was standing here, I heard Aresh's pleading that, I swear to my mother's grave, I will pay you back. Please calm down, put that down. Then he's shouting, how? How are you going to pay me? And that's when Samira said, I'll sell my house. Now, Alan stands there, sits Aresh and Samira on the sofa, and second shot was there on the wall.
You've laid out what you've reconstructed. Why do you believe that it unfolded the way that you said?
Well, after the police, which was on a Friday, said that I can go to the office and pick my stuff up, I went back to the office and I thought I'd film the incidents that had happened because it wasn't cleaned up.
This is the scene of the crime?
Yeah. So as you can see, the shooter was standing here where he shot Aresh and Samira, who were sitting on the sofa. That's where Samira screamed. And you can see blood spatter on the wall as well. And this is the blood of Samira and Aresh. And then, as he was standing there and saw the police coming, he shot both of them, 2 shots each, 4, and then a pause, and then the last one. And that's the shooter's blood when he shot himself, and that's where he fell.
Graphic.
Very graphic. I still can't believe that they're gone. Still can't believe that. Cold-blooded murder for me. That's what he was. Because they were begging for their lives.
Sitting in her living room, Elisa Pogorelowski clutches a picture with her husband, Alan Katz.
Asked for help, and nobody did nothing.
She says as a result, they lost their life savings, $1.28 million.
These people lost their life savings. They spent their entire lives saving up.
Nobody has the right to take somebody's life, but I definitely understand the reasons behind it.
Michael Ackerman is talking about his friend Alan Katz, seen here. Katz worked in construction and sometimes as a DJ. Now this widow is trying to raise money to pay for a funeral through a GoFundMe campaign, and she's selling her artwork, whatever she says it will take, to provide for her 2 children and to fund a legal fight to get their money back.
There has to be a level of enforcement. I can't understand how this man kept on ripping off people for years and years.
Though Michael Ackerman says he doesn't condone what Katz did, public opinion in the form of online comments doesn't condemn Katz.
90% of them are supporting him and hailing him as a hero, and I think in a way he was a hero.
So that shooting on Monday claimed 3 lives, an act of retribution that Katz's family says was out of character for the 46-year-old father, described as humble and gentle, but pushed to the edge.
I Moldova, and I came from Israel to Canada in 2008.
Originally from Belarus, Alan Katz had also immigrated to Canada from Israel.
I got the husband, the family, kids. If you want to buy a house, you have to save money. No day offs, working on the weekends.
But there's a smile on your face when you talk about that because this was meaningful to you.
Yeah, because it was my life. I love my life every day of it. He was best friend, best lover, like best father, best husband. Long and happy life together. This was my dream. We put everything in the house.
Did you know anything about there being a gun?
No, I don't. I didn't. He finished military in Israel. I finished military in Israel too. So we are familiar with gun.
But there's a difference between knowing what to do and the compulsory military service that you did, and then having an interest in it in your own guns. But that wasn't what he was like.
No. It was because what happened with Trudeau.
Today, we're announcing new legislation for stronger measures than ever before to combat gun violence in Canada.
You know, he wants to take all firearms. He wants to take it back. And we decided maybe we have to have it just in case. And it was almost 2 years before what happened. We took a train together.
And then when you do the course, you have to apply to be able to get licensed for the RCMP.
Yeah, but we never applied. But he applied secretly that I didn't know. Like 2 months before what happened, 2-3 months before.
They're supposed to call around family and friends and people.
I found out that our friends give him
reference,
right?
You didn't know anything about that?
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know.
And then when he had the license, he was able to buy the...
Yes, he got the gun and he did what he did.
You still have questions about what happened?
I have questions, yes. It's not just some gun. It's a shoot gun. It's a very heavy gun. It's very hard to kill yourself with this gun and people too. So I have to find out what happened. I tried to get the police report and they didn't give me the police report.
The widow here said that she was not briefed by the police on any of the circumstances formally about what happened, how her husband died. Is that standard practice?
I can't. I wasn't privy to the investigation at all. I can't speak to it.
Before I wasn't thinking what happened because people are dead and whatever happened, right? But now I have to find out what actually happened because they don't want to give me the police report.
They haven't released his name publicly.
I've been told we're not allowed to. I've been told that legally we can't. I don't understand it, but our legal have told us that we're not to identify him.
When we asked Toronto Police for more details, they told us, quote, "We are bound by legislation that governs our ability to disclose personal information to the public, and that permission is usually tied to a charge or conviction." They added that Elisa Pogorelowski has been advised she can obtain records through freedom of information. Do you believe that they should release his name?
Maybe they don't release it because they don't want to actually explain what happened. Maybe we still don't know something.
Welcome back. In June of 2024, 46-year-old Alan Katz walked into a Toronto office building and shot the two people he alleged stole his family's life savings in a mortgage fraud. It's then believed he took his own life. But a witness questions whether or not these 3 lives could have been saved. Now, back to Sean O'Shea with the conclusion of deadly retribution.
So this is the field of view. This is the main reception area.
So that's the reception area. And as you can see, these are all mirrored. So you can't see inside, but
you can see out.
You can see outside, yeah. The second police car, the backup, when they come, 1 comes here and 2 from that side come here, and they park here and there. So what happens is he sees them, he panics, he moves towards there by the wall, and then shoots them from that side. The reason I'm saying why I called 911 was a mistake, well, because from the time the first 2 shots till the last shots, it took 5-6 minutes and it was quiet, nothing had happened until the police arrived. I heard that the police have said that I'm lying, and they were inside the car when they heard the shots, which is not possible because you must be very close to hear those shots because it's inside the building.
Do you think it would have been resolved if the police hadn't shown up?
Maybe.
According to Toronto Police, upon arrival, the first officer reported hearing several loud bangs while inside their vehicle. Officers entered 25 Mallard Road less than 2 minutes after arriving and found 3 individuals already deceased. There were no reports of gunshots after officers exited their vehicles. They also told us if gunshots had been heard while officers were standing outside the building, officers would have immediately reported the sound of gunshots and it would have been captured on their body-worn cameras, which have audio. Toronto Police would not grant us access to the audio. You still have questions about how the police acted that day?
Yes, because now I understand that he killed himself after they arrived.
What do you think of that? The idea that he gave them a chance, and maybe had the police not shown up, or had he thought that he was not going to be in deeper trouble, he might have walked away.
Imagine you walking with the gun, shoot gun. Do you think if you walk with the shoot gun to office other people, you think there is any other way, then not kill them?
He was happy 2 weeks prior to this happening. Apparently, there was a case that Arash had in the US, which he had won. I heard that he was going to pay everyone off with the money that he was getting, and he was going to quit all this business.
Would you believe this person if he say, I will give you money back after 8 months? He's saying that he will give you money back, but no. We don't know if he say true or not.
He was never convicted. It was never proven that Arash had done whatever they say that he's done. And of course, his business activities, I don't know anything about that. I've heard all these things after the incident because what I knew from him was the business of the food products, which I was doing labels for him.
I can tell you why he was involved in food labeling, because another one of Mr. Masagi's classic fraudulent schemes was trademark and copyright fraud. In fact, that was at the root of the $1 million fraud judgment against him in New York.
I feel angry. I feel disgusted. I feel that they have no empathy or sympathy for their fellow human beings. Most people don't see the damages of fraud. Most people think it's a victimless crime.
There's no blood on the sidewalk.
There's no blood on the sidewalk. It's not sexy. You have his word against your word. Well, yeah, I brought them in to make investments. Well, it didn't work out.
There's no police tape around the crime scene.
Exactly. Until there is. I know that the suspect of the frauds that was charged by the Toronto Police in 2 separate major projects in the last 10, 15 years, we had reasonable grounds to believe that he was guilty of those offenses. Those investigations were massive. They were time-consuming. They took years to complete.
You investigated. You laid charges. You were prepared to go to court.
That's right.
And the Crown dropped the charges. And there you are.
That's right. That's right. Those charges were dropped just on the eve of trial.
I have no insight into why the Crown did that, but I can speculate that at the end of the day, do we want to spend our limited resources prosecuting these claims where there is very little prospect of success, or do we want to focus our attention on prosecuting murderers and rapists and keeping them behind bars?
Things need to change. The police are not going to solve this problem. We cannot. We don't have the power. We don't have the authority. We don't have the resources. We don't have the means to stop fraud.
This case is so egregious because here is an individual who was able to systematically abuse the Canadian justice system for over 20 years, defraud literally hundreds of people of millions of dollars. And the bottom line is, if people can't look to the justice system to defend them from fraudsters and scammers, to protect their rights, then the kind of vigilante justice that Mr. Katz ultimately felt forced into, it's inevitable.
It's hard to determine what people are going to do when they basically lose their life savings. It's almost like an epidemic right now.
So I think a great way to illustrate exactly who Mr. Masagi was and how he perceived himself is to read some texts that he sent to a client of mine, which were ultimately put into the public record in a number of court decisions. Keep ignoring, keep hiding, pretty soon you will be running too. Stealing from a person like is like stealing from Al Capone. I don't allow it to happen. By Tuesday, we will let the games begin. I will have no mercy after Tuesday. In his own words,
I go to Arish's grave every now and then, and I always tell him, I'm sorry I left you alone. That's what I say.
He didn't deserve to die like that.
No.
Nor did she.
Nor did she, no. And that's the thing, you see, it's bothering me since 6 months ago. That's why did I leave them alone? Why did I leave? Why didn't I stay? Why didn't I interrupt? Why didn't I all kinds of things. What was he thinking when I left the office? Because the door has got a squeaky noise, so definitely he was able to hear. Or was it in his mind that, Sharon is gone, there's no one else in the office, so what am I going to do with this guy, What was his thoughts when I left? That hurts as well.
The legal cases, the civil cases, they're not finished.
No, it's still in process. In this stage, I cannot talk about that.
At the time, Arash Masagi and Samira Youssefi both denied the allegations brought by the lawsuit.
We probably won't be able to get our money because we don't have enough money to fight. I have to still somehow to live without any other support. I really appreciate the support people give me with the GoFundMe. It's helped a lot.
Lisa hopes to one day return to making her art, that it could be a way to help her heal.
To feel love, be loved, I feel empty. Like I'm trying to work, but I can't at this point.
Are you angry with Alan at all because of what he did?
Anger, it's a big feeling. It's taking too much of my power and I need to continue walking. So no anger. It won't help me to move on.
It haunts you. It rips you apart. It really does. I have 25 years as a police officer, so I have gone to many radio calls involving persons threatening violence upon themselves or upon other people. As damaging and as painful as events in their lives occur, I have to believe that they will get better, and I have to try and convince them of that. At the end of the day, the most important people in our lives are our family and our friends. We want people to be around to stay with them.
Yeah, my son still, he knows that Papa is not here, but he doesn't, it's hard time for him a lot.
Papa?
Hard, because he doesn't want to play the toys he played with his father. He doesn't want to do stuff that he did with his father. I wish he never done it, yes. I wish he never done. Doesn't matter how bad is the person. It's not in your power to take life. I miss him all day, every day.
If you or someone you know is in crisis and contemplating suicide, there is help. Call or text 988 from anywhere in Canada. For this program, members of Arash Masagi's family did not wish to speak with us. We were unable to reach the family of Samira Youssefi. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast, now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube page.